They threw rocks at him like he was nothing. Just another homeless man sleeping under a bridge, invisible to the world rushing past above him. The first few stones were small, experimental, testing to see if he'd wake up, if he'd fight back, if he even could. Before we jump back in, tell us where you're tuning in from, and if this story touches you, make sure you're subscribed because tomorrow I've saved something extra special for you. But when the biggest rock hit him square in the chest, knocking the wind from his lungs and jarring him awake with a gasp of pain, something fell from his worn jacket pocket. Something metallic that caught the morning light and skittered across the concrete with a distinctive clink. One of the teenagers, a kid maybe 17 with expensive sneakers and a smirk that said he'd never faced real consequences, picked it up and froze. It was a patch, faded, oil-stained, edges frayed from decades of wear. But the image was unmistakable. A snarling, wolf's head over crossed pistons. The steel wolves, MC, and beneath it, stitched in thread that had somehow survived 30 years of road and rain. Road Captain, Axel, Ironside, Brennan, 1989 to 2019. The kid dropped it like it burned him. Because even punks who knew nothing about respect, who'd never worked an honest day, who thought violence was a game, knew one thing: you don't touch a steel wolf. Not ever. But by then, it was too late. The damage was done. And Axel Brennan, lying bleeding on cold concrete under a highway overpass, reached into his jacket with trembling fingers and pulled out a phone so old it had actual buttons. He dialed one number. That's all it took. One call. And 12 hours later, 500 motorcycles would roll into town like thunder, ready to remind the world that some men never stand alone. The underpass on Highway 287 wasn't the worst place Axel Brennan had slept in the past 6 months. That honor belonged to the drainage ditch outside Amarillo, where he'd woken up covered in ants. Or maybe the abandoned warehouse in Tulsa, where rats had chewed through his backpack looking for food. No, the underpass was almost comfortable by comparison. The concrete stayed relatively dry when it rained. The traffic noise above became white noise after a while, almost soothing. And most importantly, people left you alone. Commuters driving overhead never looked down, never wondered about the shapes huddled in the shadows below. Invisible. That's what Axel had become. At 63 years old, Axel Brennan was a ghost of the man he'd once been. The man who'd commanded respect from 30 riders across 3 states. The man who'd planned routes, settled disputes, kept the peace within the steel wolves with nothing but his word and his reputation. Road Captain. Second only to the club president in authority and trust. That man had died 3 years ago in a VA hospital room, watching his wife of 37 years take her last breath while machines beeped their mechanical countdown to loss. Susan, even thinking her name hurt. Axel shifted on his sleeping bag, a $20 special from Walmart that was already developing holes, and tried to find a position where his hip didn't scream in protest. The doctors had told him he needed replacement surgery, told him the VA would cover it, that he qualified for benefits, that there were programs designed specifically for veterans like him. Veterans like him, as if there were others who'd thrown away everything after their wife died, others who'd sold their house, their bike, every possession that held memories too painful to carry, others who'd walked away from their brothers, their club, their entire identity, because staying meant facing the empty space where Susan used to be. The Steel Wolves had tried to help. Of course they had. Ghost, the club president, had called every day for the first month, then every week, then monthly check-ins that Axel ignored with increasing consistency until Ghost finally stopped trying. The brothers had shown up at his door before he sold the house. Offered money, offered shelter, offered the spare room at the clubhouse where he could stay as long as he needed. No strings, no judgment, just brotherhood. Axel had turned them all away. He didn't deserve their help, didn't deserve their kindness, didn't deserve anything except the cold concrete and the weight of his own failure. Because he'd failed Susan. Failed to keep his promise that they'd grow old together, travel the country on 2 wheels. failed to be there when she needed him. Most he'd been on a club run in Arizona when she collapsed at home, 3 hours away when she was rushed to the emergency room with a brain aneurysm that would kill her 6 days later. 3 hours. That's how long it took him to get to her side. 3 hours too late to say goodbye while she was still conscious. Too late to hold her hand while she could still feel it. Too late for anything except watching machines keep her alive until the doctors gently suggested it was time to let go. So, Axel had let go. Of everything. The sunrise was just beginning to paint the underside of the overpass in shades of gray and orange when Axel heard the voices. Young, male, multiple speakers, volume increasing as they approached. Dude, I'm telling you, there's totally a homeless camp down here. Tyler found it last week. Yeah? They got anything worth taking? Probably not, but it's funny watching them freak out when you mess with their stuff. Axel kept his eyes closed. Experience had taught him that sometimes, if you stayed perfectly still, groups like this would get bored and move on. They wanted a reaction. Wanted fear or anger or desperation they could laugh about later. Give them nothing, and sometimes they'd leave. Not today. Holy shit, there's one right there. Old dude, totally passed out. Footsteps approached. Axel could smell them now, expensive cologne, trying to mask cigarette smoke and marijuana. Rich kids playing poor, slumming in the parts of town their parents told them to avoid, seeking thrills they didn't understand. Is he dead? Nah. Look, he's breathing, probably drunk. Let's wake him up. This voice was different. Eager. Cruel in a way that came from never facing consequences. I got an idea. The first rock hit Axel's leg. Small, more annoying than painful. He didn't react. The second hit his shoulder. The third caught him in the ribs, larger, thrown harder. Axel's eyes snapped open. 5 teenagers stood in a semicircle around him. All boys, aged maybe 16 to 18. Designer clothes. Phones that cost more than Axel ate in a month, the kind of casual entitlement that came from never wanting for anything. Morning, sunshine. The tallest one grinned. He had perfect teeth, probably braces in his past. Definitely college in his future. You're trespassing, old man. This is our spot. Axel sat up slowly, every joint protesting. His voice came out rough and used to speaking. It's a public underpass. Nobody owns it. Wrong. We own it. And you gotta pay rent. The kid picked up another rock, larger. Unless you want to leave. That's free. I'm not hurting anyone. Just let me be. Nah, see, that's not how this works. The kid weighed the rock in his hand. You got any money? Homeless guy? Any booze? Come on. You gotta have something. Axel struggled to his feet, using the concrete pillar behind him for support. Standing, he had maybe 2 inches on the tallest kid, but age and hunger had stolen his strength. These weren't fair odds. Weren't even close. I don't want trouble. Just leave me alone. Or what? Another kid stepped forward, emboldened by the group. You gonna fight all of us, old man? Leave, please. Axel's voice carried weight he didn't feel. The ghost of authority from a life he'd abandoned. It didn't work. The tall kid threw the rock. It hit Axel square in the chest with enough force to knock him backward into the pillar. Pain exploded through his sternum, sharp and immediate. He gasped, hand flying to his chest, and heard something hit the concrete. His patch. The one thing he'd kept when he sold everything else. The one piece of his old life he couldn't let go, even though wearing it felt like a lie. Road captain. A title he no longer deserved, representing brothers he'd abandoned. It had fallen from his jacket pocket, dislodged by the impact. One of the younger kids, maybe 16 with acne and a nervous laugh, picked it up. Yo, what is this? Some kind of gang thing? The tall kid snatched it from him, studying the patch. His expression changed, shifted from cruel amusement to something else. Uncertainty, maybe, or the first stirring of actual fear. Steel Wolves, he read aloud. That's one of those motorcycle clubs. So what? The nervous kid tried to sound brave. It's just a jacket patch. Probably bought it at a thrift store or something. But the tall kid was staring at Axel now, really looking at him for the first time. Seeing past the threadbare clothes and unkempt beard. Seeing the scars on his hands, the faded tattoos on his forearms, the way he stood despite the pain straight-backed, shoulders squared. Military bearing that no amount of homelessness could erase. "That's not a fake," the kid said quietly. "Is it?" Axel met his eyes. "No, you're actually—" The kid's voice trailed off. "Was." Axel corrected. "I was. Not anymore. Now give me back my patch and get out of here." The tall kid looked at the patch in his hands, at his friends, at Axel. Calculation happened behind his eyes. Pride versus common sense. The need to save face in front of his crew versus the dawning realization that maybe, just maybe, he'd made a mistake. Pride won. "Nah." He shoved the patch in his pocket. "I think I'll keep it. Souvenir, you know? Proof we messed with a real biker." He grinned at his friends, confidence returning. "Come on, let's bounce before he calls his gang on us or whatever." They left laughing, footsteps echoing off concrete, leaving Axel alone with pain blooming in his chest and the hollow knowledge that he'd just lost the last piece of who he used to be. He sat back down slowly, hand pressed against his ribs. Probably not broken, probably, but damaged enough that breathing hurt. Axel pulled out his phone. Ancient flip phone. $25 prepaid from a gas station. He'd kept it charged at the library, used it sparingly for. What exactly? He had no one to call. No one who wanted to hear from him. Except, his thumb hovered over a number he hadn't dialed in 3 years. A number he'd memorized decades ago and never forgotten, even when he tried. Ghost. Club president. Brother. Friend who'd stopped calling after 2 years of Axel, refusing to answer. Refusing help. Refusing everything. Why would Ghost even pick up? Why would any of them care about a man who'd walked away? Who'd chosen isolation over brotherhood? Who'd violated every code the club lived by? But those kids had his patch. The symbol of 30 years of loyalty, of roads ridden, of brothers stood beside. They'd taken it like it was nothing, like he was nothing, and maybe Axel was nothing. Maybe he deserved this. But that patch didn't. He dialed. The phone rang 4 times. Axel almost hung up, almost ended the call, and accepted that this was his life, now homeless, beaten, forgotten. The man who'd thrown away everything good because he couldn't live with the pain. Then a voice answered. Gruff. Suspicious. "Yeah, Ghost." Axel's voice cracked. "It's Axel." Silence. Long enough that Axel thought maybe the call had dropped. Then, Jesus Christ. Ironside. The nickname hit like a physical blow. Ironside. They'd given it to him after a bar fight in Tucson, where he'd taken a pool cue to the ribs and kept fighting. Kept standing. Iron ribs, iron will, iron loyalty. All of it gone now. "Yeah, it's me." 3 years, Axel. 3 goddamn years. "Where the hell are you?" "Denver. Highway 287 underpass, east side." More silence. Then Ghost's voice changed, sharpened. "You hurt? You in trouble?" "Some kids. They took my patch. Threw rocks, jumped me. I'm—" Axel struggled with the words. With admitting what he'd become. "I'm on the street, Ghost. Have been for a while." "Your patch." Ghost's voice went deadly quiet. "Your road captain patch." "Yeah. They took it off you?" "Fell out of my pocket when they hit me. They picked it up and—" Axel closed his eyes. "They kept it. Said it was a souvenir." The sound that came through the phone was pure rage. "Give me the address. Exact location. Now." Axel rattled off the cross streets, the identifying landmarks. His mind was working again, functioning with a clarity that had been absent for 3 years. "Ghost, don't. It's not worth. The fuck it's not. You're steel. Wolves. Axel. Always have been, always will be. You walk away from us, fine. You don't call for 3 years, we'll survive. But nobody, and I mean nobody, puts hands on one of ours. Nobody takes our patches, and nobody disrespects a road captain. I'm not your Ironside. You earned that name. earned that patch. And some punk kids think they can beat on you and take your colors? Ghost's voice carried across the line like thunder. Nah, not happening. I'm making calls. We'll be there in 12 hours. Ghost, you don't have to. 12 hours, Axel. You stay there. You stay safe. And brother? Ghost's voice softened. It's good to hear your voice, even if the circumstances are shit. The line went dead. Axel sat there, phone in hand, staring at nothing. What had he done? He just called down the full weight of the steel wolves on a group of stupid teenagers who didn't understand what they'd stumbled into. But more than that, he'd admitted defeat. Admitted he needed help. Admitted that maybe, just maybe, he couldn't survive alone anymore. His chest ached where the rock had hit. His hip throbbed. His stomach growled with a hunger that had become so constant he barely noticed it anymore. And for the first time in 3 years, Axel Brennan felt something other than numbness. Hope. Terrifying, painful hope. Ghost real name Michael Garrett. 68 years old, president of the Steel Wolves MC for 23 years, ended the call and sat motionless for exactly 5 seconds. Then he started moving. His clubhouse in Albuquerque exploded into activity. Ghost walked into the common room, where 8 brothers sat drinking coffee, playing cards, arguing about the best route to Sturgis. All conversation died when they saw his face. Listen up. Ghost's voice carried command that came from decades of leading men who wouldn't follow just anyone. Ironside just called. The room went electric. Men sat up straight, cards forgotten. Ironside. They're missing, brother. The road captain, who'd vanished 3 years ago after his wife died, who'd stopped answering calls, stopped showing up to meetings, stopped existing as far as the world was concerned. He's in Denver, Highway 287 underpass. Living on the street. Ghost's jaw tightened. Some kids beat on him, took his patch. The reaction was instantaneous. Chairs scraping back, voices raised in anger, fists hitting tables. The kind of fury that came from brotherhood violated, from family attacked. I want every chapter within 500 miles activated. Ghost continued. Every rider who can move. We're going to Denver, and we're going to have a conversation with some punk kids about respect. Razor, the sergeant-at-arms, was already on his phone. On it. I'll call Colorado, Wyoming, Kansas chapters. Get the Texas boys moving north. And get me the Denver P.D. contact. Officer. Ghost snapped his fingers, searching memory. Martinez. Someone supplied. Danny Martinez. Worked with us on that charity toy drive 2 years ago. Right. Get him on the line. We're doing this by the book. No vigilante shit. But those kids returned that patch. Apologize to Ironside. And understand what they did. Ghost's eyes were steel. And we bring Axel home. What if he doesn't want to come? This from Smokey, the club's treasurer. Quiet man, thoughtful. He walked away, Ghost. Made that choice. Then he made it while grieving, while broken, while not thinking straight. Ghost's voice softened slightly. Susan's death broke him. We all saw it. And we failed him by not trying harder, by letting him disappear. That ends today. The room rumbled agreement. Within an hour, the calls had been made. Within 3 hours, motorcycles across 4 states were being gassed up, checked over, prepared for the ride. Within 6 hours, convoys were rolling toward Denver from every direction. The Steel Wolves were coming home. All of them. And heaven help anyone who stood in their way. By nightfall, Axel had cleaned himself up as best he could at a gas station bathroom. The attendant had looked at him with a mixture of pity and disgust, but hadn't stopped him from using the sink to wash his face and hands. He'd combed his beard with his fingers, straightened his jacket, tried to look like something other than what he was. It didn't work. The mirror reflected a stranger. Gaunt face, sunken eyes, skin weathered by exposure. This wasn't the man Susan had married. Wasn't the road captain who'd commanded respect. This was a ghost wearing a dead man's face. Axel walked back to the underpass as the sun set, painting the sky in shades of orange and purple that Susan would have loved. She'd always stopped to watch sunsets, no matter where they were, Made him stop too. Made him slow down long enough to appreciate beauty. He hadn't watched a sunset in 3 years. Hadn't let himself. The underpass was empty. His sleeping bag remained where he'd left it, along with his backpack containing everything he owned. Spare shirt, a blanket, 3 protein bars, a water bottle, and a paperback novel so worn the pages were falling out. This was his life now. This was what remained. Axel sat down and waited. The first rumble reached him around 10 p.m. Distant. A low thunder that could have been mistaken for storms, except the sky was clear and stars were beginning to appear. Engines, multiple engines, getting closer. Axel stood, heart hammering. Part of him wanted to run, wanted to disappear before Ghost arrived, before his brothers saw what he'd become. The shame was overwhelming. These men remembered Road Captain Ironside. Strong, capable, reliable. The man who'd led them through difficult runs, who'd settled disputes, who'd represented everything the club stood for. They didn't need to see this hollow shell. But his feet wouldn't move. Couldn't. Because underneath the shame, underneath the self-loathing and grief, something else stirred. Something he'd thought was dead. The need to belong, to be seen, to matter. The rumble grew louder. Then headlights appeared on the access road leading to the underpass. 1 motorcycle. 2, 5, 10, 20, 50. They kept coming. A river of chrome and leather and controlled power flowing into the space under the highway. Engines cutting off one by one until the silence was louder than the noise had been. Axel stood frozen as riders dismounted. He recognized faces from 30 years of brotherhood. Younger men he'd trained. Older men he'd ridden beside. Ghost at the front, gray beard longer than Axel remembered, leather vest creaking as he walked forward. They formed a semicircle around him, not threatening, protective. A wall of brothers between Axel and the world. Ghost stopped 3 feet away, studied Axel's face for a long moment. When he spoke, his voice was rough. "You look like shit, Ironside." "I know. When's the last time you ate a real meal?" "I don't. Couple days, maybe." Ghost nodded once. "Razor. Food." Now, preparing and narrating this story took us a lot of time. So if you are enjoying it, subscribe to our channel. It means a lot to us. Now back to the story. Men moved. Within minutes, someone produced a folding chair. Someone else brought coffee in a thermos. A third brother appeared with a bag from McDonald's, 2 Big Macs, large fries, and a chocolate shake. Simple food that might as well have been a 5-star meal. Axel's hand shook as he accepted it. "You didn't have to. Shut up and eat," Ghost said, not unkindly. "We'll talk after." Axel ate. Forced himself to go slow, even though his body screamed to devour everything at once. The brothers watched in silence. Not judgment on their faces. Concern, worry, the look of family watching a member suffer. When he finished, Ghost sat down on an overturned crate someone had found. "You gonna tell me what happened? How Road Captain Axel Brennan ended up sleeping under a bridge? Where did he even start? How did you explain 3 years of grief and guilt and self-destruction?" "Susan died," Axel said finally. "And I couldn't be in that house anymore. Couldn't ride past the places we'd been. Couldn't face any of it. So you ran." "So I ran," Axel agreed. "Sold everything. Left. Figured I'd just ride until I figured things out. But I never figured anything out. Just kept moving until I ran out of money. Then ran out of will. Then ended up here." Ghost was quiet for a moment. "We tried to reach you. For 2 years straight." "I know. I'm sorry. Don't apologize to me. Apologize to them." Ghost gestured at the assembled riders. "These men dropped everything to come here. Left jobs, families, responsibilities. Because you're ours, Axel. You're family. And family doesn't abandon family." The words hit like physical blows. Because that's exactly what Axel had done. Abandoned them. Walked away from the one thing that might have saved him. "I didn't deserve your help," Axel said quietly. "Still don't. That's not your call to make." Ghost stood. "You think you're the first brother to break?" To fall apart? We've all got our demons. Ironside. All got our wars. Some inside, some outside. The difference is, we fight them together. Razor stepped forward. The patch, Axel. Tell us about the kids who took it. Right. The reason Ghost had called everyone here. Not just for Axel. For justice, for respect, for the club's honor. 5 teenagers, maybe 16 to 18. Expensive clothes, rich kids. They were throwing rocks, looking for trouble. My patch fell out when one hit me. They picked it up and kept it. You get a good look at them? Axel described them as best he could. The tall one with perfect teeth. The nervous kid with acne. The expensive sneakers, designer hoodies, the entitled arrogance of kids who'd never faced real consequences. Ghost nodded slowly. We'll find them, and we'll get your patch back. Ghost, they're just kids. Stupid kids. Kids who assaulted a veteran. Kids who stole club property. Kids who need to learn a lesson about respect before they hurt someone else. Ghost's voice was firm. We're not going to hurt them, Axel. But they are going to understand what they did, and they are going to make it right. The principal of Mountain View High School looked up from her desk to see something that made her reach for the phone instinctively. The parking lot was full of motorcycles. Not 10 or 20. Hundreds. They lined every available space, overflowed onto the street, filled the bus lane. And standing in a perfect formation in front of the school entrance were what looked like 200 bikers in leather vests, arms crossed, waiting. Principal Carol Henderson had been an educator for 30 years. She dealt with fights, drugs, weapons, every crisis imaginable. But this was new. She walked outside on shaking legs. A massive man with a gray beard stepped forward. Ma'am, I'm Michael Garrett, president of the Steel Wolves Motorcycle Club. We're looking for 5 students who were involved in an assault yesterday. We have names, thanks to some witnesses who came forward. We'd like you to call them to the office. Carol's mind raced. I need to call the police. Already done. Ghost gestured. A Denver police cruiser was pulling up, Officer Danny Martinez stepping out. Officer Martinez is here to ensure everything stays peaceful and legal. We're not here to cause trouble. We're here to resolve a situation. Danny Martinez walked up, hand resting carefully on his belt, but not his weapon. He'd worked with the Steel Wolves before on charity events. Knew Ghost. Trusted him as much as you could trust any club president. Ghost, what's this about? 5 kids from this school beat and robbed a veteran yesterday. One of my men. We want them to return what they stole and apologize. That's all. That's all? Carol's voice was skeptical. You brought 200 bikers for an apology? We brought family. Ghost corrected. Because sometimes lessons stick better when there's witnesses. Danny sighed. Give me the names. Within 10 minutes, 5 very pale teenagers sat in the principal's office. They'd walked down a hallway lined with bikers, felt 200 pairs of eyes following them, understood in their bones that something serious was happening. The tall kid identified as Brandon Pierce, 17. Son of a local real estate developer, looked like he might throw up. Ghost entered the office with Officer Martinez and one other person, Axel. He cleaned up more this morning, borrowed clothes that actually fit, shaved with a razor someone provided, but he still looked rough, still looked like what he was, a man who'd been living on the streets. Brandon's eyes went wide. He recognized Axel immediately. These the kids? Ghost asked. Axel nodded. Yeah, that's them. Officer Martinez, you want to explain the situation? Danny stepped forward. Yesterday, these 5 individuals assaulted Mr. Brennan, a military veteran, while he was sleeping under the Highway 287 overpass. They threw rocks at him, causing injury, and stole personal property, specifically a motorcycle club patch valued both monetarily and sentimentally. This constitutes assault and theft. We didn't know, Brandon started. You didn't know assaulting a sleeping man was wrong? Ghost's voice was ice. You didn't know stealing was illegal? Or did you just not care because you thought he was nobody? Silence. My name is Axel Brennan, Axel said quietly. All 5 kids looked at him. I'm 63 years old. I'm a Marine Corps veteran, served 2 tours in Vietnam. I was a road captain in the Steel Wolves Motorcycle Club for 30 years. I'm also a widower who made some bad choices after my wife died and ended up on the streets. His voice was steady, clear, the voice of a man finding his footing again. You looked at me and saw trash. Saw someone you could hurt for fun, someone who didn't matter. And maybe I don't matter much these days. But that patch you took, that matters. It represents 30 years of brotherhood, loyalty, and respect. It represents men who have my back no matter what. Men who dropped everything to come here because someone hurt their brother. Brandon was crying now, quiet tears running down his face. I want my patch back, Axel said simply. And I want you to understand what you did. Not to me, to the idea that people without homes, without money, without status are less than human. That's the lesson here. Brandon fumbled in his backpack with shaking hands. Pulled out the patch. It was wrinkled, dirty, but intact. He handed it to Axel. I'm sorry. I'm really, really sorry. Axel took the patch, held it in his hands like something sacred. You're sorry you got caught. Or sorry you did it? Both. Brandon's voice cracked. We were bored, looking for something to do. And I saw you there, and I don't know why I did it. It was wrong. It was really wrong. The other 4 kids nodded, all crying now, the weight of their actions and the wall of bikers outside, finally crashing down on them. Officer Martinez, Ghost said. Mr. Brennan, you want to press charges? All eyes turned to Axel. He looked at the 5 teenagers. Kids. Stupid, privileged, cruel kids who'd made a terrible choice but were still just kids. He thought about Susan, about how she'd always believed in second chances, in redemption, in the power of mercy. No charges, Axel said finally. On one condition. Name it, Brandon said desperately. You 5. Community service. 200 hours each. At homeless shelters, food banks, veterans organizations. You're going to see the people you thought were invisible. You're going to serve them, learn their stories, understand that they're human beings. Axel stepped closer, and all 5 kids flinched. And if I ever hear about you hurting someone again, if you go back to throwing rocks at people who can't defend themselves, then we'll have another conversation. And next time, I will press charges. And these 200 men will make sure those charges stick. Understood? 5 heads nodded frantically. Good. Axel pinned his patch back onto his jacket, right over his heart where it belonged. Now get out of here. And do better. The kids fled. Principal Henderson looked at Ghost with something like respect. That was not what I expected. We're not monsters, ma'am. We're just men who believe in accountability. Ghost tipped his head. Thank you for your cooperation. As they walked out of the school, 200 bikers stood at attention. A corridor of leather and chrome that Brandon and his friends had to walk through to reach their cars. Not a single biker spoke. Didn't need to. The message was clear. We see you. We know you. And we'll be watching. The ride back to the underpass was surreal. Axel rode on the back of Ghost's bike, his patch restored to his jacket. 200 motorcycles, escorting them through Denver like a parade of thunder. People stopped to watch, filmed on phones, waved. The sight was too impressive to ignore. When they reached the underpass, Axel expected Ghost to say goodbye. Expected the brothers to ride off, mission accomplished, back to their lives. Instead, bikes circled and parked. Brothers dismounted and started. Setting up camp? What's going on? Axel asked. You think we rode 12 hours just to get your patch back? Ghost grinned. Nah, brother. We're here for you. Razor appeared with another McDonald's bag. Breakfast. Eat. Someone else brought a folding chair. A better one this time. Someone started a small camping stove for coffee. Someone else spread a tarp over Axel's sleeping area, creating actual shelter. Within an hour, the underpass had been transformed. No longer a lonely refuge for one broken man. Now it was a temporary clubhouse. Brothers talking, laughing, telling stories, planning. We've been talking, Ghost said, sitting down next to Axel. The club voted. Unanimous. Voted on what? You're coming home. Axel's throat tightened. Ghost, I can't. I don't have anything. No money, no bike, nothing to contribute. You have yourself. That's enough. Ghost pulled out a folder. We've got this. The club has a fund. We've already paid first and last month's rent on an apartment. Small place, but it's yours. Comes furnished. We've got a job lined up at Razor's garage. He needs a parts manager. Pays $15 an hour to start. And we took up a collection. He handed Axel an envelope. Inside was $4,300 in cash. This is... Axel couldn't finish the sentence. This is family, Ghost said simply. This is what brothers do. You were there for all of us at some point. Now we're here for you. Smokey stepped forward. The apartment has a VA counselor's number on the fridge. Already set up an appointment for you next week. PTSD, grief counseling, whatever you need. No judgment. And there's a storage unit with some stuff in it. Razor added. Things we grabbed from your house sale before everything got liquidated. Susan's photo albums. Your old riding gear. Some things we thought you might want back someday. Axel looked around at these men, at faces weathered by road and time, but lit with genuine care. At brothers who refused to let him fall completely, who'd held on to pieces of his life even when he'd tried to throw it all away. I don't deserve this, he whispered. Stop saying that. Ghost's voice was firm but kind. You lost your wife. You grieved in the only way you knew how. That doesn't make you weak. Doesn't make you less. It makes you human. I abandoned you all, and we never abandoned you. Ghost put a hand on Axel's shoulder. That's the difference. That's what brotherhood means. You don't give up on family. Ever. The tears came then. 3 years of pain and loneliness and self-hatred pouring out in great, heaving sobs that Axel couldn't control and didn't try to. Brothers surrounded him. Hands on his shoulders, his back, solid and present, letting him break, letting him feel, holding him together while he fell apart. When the storm passed, Axel looked up at Ghost through wet eyes. I don't know how to come back from this. One day at a time, brother. One day at a time. The apartment was small. Studio, basically. But it had a real bed. A bathroom with hot water. A kitchenette where Axel could cook actual meals. Windows that let in sunlight. A door that locked. Axel stood in the center of his new space, still not quite believing it was real. His patch hung on the wall in a frame. Razor had done that. Made it official, made it honored. Below, it was a photo of Susan that someone had retrieved from storage. Her smile still took his breath away. I'm trying, Suze, he said quietly to the photo. I'm trying to come back. A knock at the door. Ghost entered with 2 cups of coffee from the shop downstairs. Thought you might need this. First day at the garage is always rough. Axel had started work 3 days ago. His body ached from using muscles that had atrophied. His hands were covered in fresh grease stains, and he'd forgotten more about parts management than he thought possible. But he'd shown up every day, on time, sober, trying. How you holding up? Ghost asked. I don't know. Some days are okay. Some days I wake up and think I should just leave. Go back to the bridge. But you don't. No, I don't. Axel sipped the coffee. The counselor helps. Talking about Susan, about the guilt. She says it's normal. Says grief doesn't follow a timeline. Smart lady. Yeah. Axel looked at Ghost. Why did you keep trying? After I stopped answering calls, stopped showing up, why didn't you just let me go? Ghost was quiet for a long moment. I ever tell you about my brother? My real brother, Tommy? Axel shook his head. Tommy came back from desert. Storm different. PTSD, they called it. He couldn't hold a job, couldn't sleep, couldn't function. Started drinking, then drugs, then living on the streets. Ghost's voice was heavy. I tried to help, tried everything. He refused, pushed me away, told me to leave him alone. What happened? Found him dead in an alley 6 months later. Overdose. Ghost's eyes were distant. I've lived with that for 25 years. Wondering if I'd tried harder, pushed more, refused to give up, maybe he'd still be here. Ghost, so, when you disappeared, when you stopped answering, I made a promise. I wouldn't give up. Wouldn't let another brother die alone in the dark. Even if you hated me for it. Even if you never came back, I'd keep trying. Because Tommy didn't get a second chance. But maybe you could. The weight of that settled between them. I'm sorry about your brother, Axel said finally. Me too. But I'm grateful for you. For the chance to do it right this time. Ghost stood. Club meeting tonight. 7 p.m. You coming? Axel hesitated. The thought of walking into the clubhouse, of facing everyone, of being road captain again, it was overwhelming. You don't have to be road captain if you're not ready, Ghost added, reading his mind. You can just be Axel. Just be our brother. That's enough. I'll be there, Axel heard himself say. I'll be there. The clubhouse hadn't changed in 3 years. Same worn pool table. Same bar with bottles that never seemed to empty. Same photos on the walls of rides and brothers and moments captured forever. Axel walked in at 6:55 p.m., hard hammering. Conversation stopped. Every head turned. Then Razor started it. A slow clap. One hand, then the other. Simple rhythm. Others joined. One by one, brothers stood and applauded. Not mockery. Respect. Welcome. Celebration of a brother who'd found his way back from the dark. Axel stood frozen in the doorway, overwhelmed. Ghost walked over and embraced him. Welcome home, Ironside. The meeting was normal. Club business. Upcoming charity ride. Maintenance schedules. Budget discussions. Boring. Mundane details that Axel had taken for granted years ago and now cherished as precious normalcy. After, brothers stayed, talking, laughing, being together. Axel found himself at the bar next to Smokey. How's the counseling going? Smokey asked. Hard. Really hard. But good. Axel studied his water he'd stopped drinking 3 days ago, another small victory. She's got me writing letters to Susan. Things I wish I'd said. Things I need to say goodbye to. That helping? Yeah. Actually, it is. Axel smiled slightly. Turns out talking about pain makes it hurt less. Who knew? Everybody but stubborn bikers, Smokey said with a grin. Later, Ghost pulled Axel aside. Got something for you. He handed over keys. What's this? Come outside. In the parking lot sat a motorcycle. Not new, but well-maintained. Harley-Davidson Softail, classic black paint with silver accents. Beautiful machine. Ghost. I can't. It's yours. Belonged to Rattler before he passed last year. His wife wanted it to go to someone who'd appreciate it. Someone who'd ride it right. Ghost pressed the keys into Axel's hand. He'd want you to have it. Axel ran his hand over the chrome, feeling the engine's potential humming beneath metal. A bike. His bike. When's the last time you rode? Ghost asked. 3 years. Since before Susan died. Want to change that? Axel looked at the bike, at Ghost, at the clubhouse full of brothers behind him. At the life he'd thought was over but was somehow, impossibly, beginning again. Yeah, he said. Yeah, I do. They rode. Just the two of them at first, then others joined. 10 bikes became 20, became 50. A river of chrome and thunder flowing through Denver streets under stars that Susan would have loved. Axel felt the wind. Felt the engine's power between his legs. Felt alive for the first time in 3 years. They rode past the Highway 287 underpass. Axel didn't look away. Didn't pretend it hadn't happened. That underpass was part of his story now. Part of his journey from broken to healing. And healing was what this was. Not fixed, he'd never be completely fixed. The grief would always be there. Susan's absence would always hurt. But he was learning to carry it differently. To let brothers help shoulder the weight. To understand that falling apart didn't mean staying broken. They circled back to the clubhouse as midnight approached. Brothers peeled off to their homes, their lives, their beds. Ghost and Axel were the last ones in the parking lot. You good? Ghost asked. Yeah, I think I actually am. Good. Because we need you, Axel. Club's not the same without our road captain. I'm not ready for that yet. I know. But when you are, and you will be, the patch is waiting. Ghost started his bike. Get some sleep, brother. Work tomorrow. Axel watched him ride away, then sat on his own bike in the silence. Pulled out his phone and opened. The photo gallery. Susan's face smiled up at him. Young, beautiful, full of life. I'm going to make it, Suz, he whispered. It's going to take time, and it's going to be hard, but I'm going to make it. These men won't let me fail, and I won't let them down again. He started the engine, felt its rumble through his bones. And Axel Brennan, road captain, brother, veteran, widower, survivor rode home. 6 months later, Brandon Pierce stood in front of a high school assembly. He completed his 200 hours of community service, worked in soup kitchens, served at homeless shelters, met veterans who'd fought for his freedom and now struggled to find a place to sleep. He'd met Axel twice during those 6 months. At a VA center where Brandon was volunteering and Axel was attending group therapy. They talked, really talked, about choices and consequences, about seeing people as human, about second chances. Now Brandon stood at a podium telling his story, warning other students about the path he'd almost gone down, about entitlement and cruelty, and the moment a wall of bikers made him understand that actions have consequences. In the back of the auditorium, Axel sat with Ghost and Razor. They'd come to support Brandon, to witness his growth. Think he learned? Razor asked. Yeah, Axel said. I think he did. As they left, students approached Axel, thanked him for his service, asked about the Steel Wolves, showed respect that would have seemed impossible a year ago. Outside, 50 motorcycles waited. The club had come for a charity ride toys for kids at the Children's Hospital. One of dozens of events they did every year. Good men doing good things, away from cameras, expecting nothing in return. This was brotherhood, not the violence movies portrayed, not the criminality people assumed. Just men who'd chosen to ride together, support each other, and stand up when standing up mattered. Axel mounted his bike, Ghost beside him. You good? Ghost asked for the 1,000th time. Yeah, brother, I'm good. And he was. Not perfect, not pain-free, but healing, living, riding. The Steel Wolves rolled out, engines singing their thunder song. 50 men who'd drop everything if one of their own called. Who'd ride through the night to defend a brother. Who'd stand against injustice with nothing but loyalty and leather. Because that's what brothers do. They stand together. Always. Up next, you've got 2 more standout stories right on your screen. If this one hit the mark, you won't want to pass these up. Just click and check them out.